Yellowstone National Park is probably the most famous national park in America. Everybody wants to go there. And so if you're planning a trip to Yellowstone, I am here to help you plan that trip so that you can see all that there is to see and avoid the crowds while doing it. Let's get started. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger, and my favorite park to help people plan trips to is Yellowstone. Mostly because for a really long time, I didn't like visiting Yellowstone. I felt like every time I was there, I was just surrounded by people. We were just circling parking lots, and you've probably heard the stories of how busy Yellowstone gets. That was my experience there for a long time. But I kept going back year after year and really figuring out a great way to see Yellowstone to the point where now I don't feel like it's crowded at all. So I am here to help you plan your trip. I have helped thousands of people have a great time in Yellowstone and not feel overwhelmed by crowds. So let's talk about trip planning for Yellowstone so that you can have a great time too. Okay, so let's take a look at the map real fast. If you're planning on coming to Yellowstone, you will find it up here in the northwest corner of Wyoming. It also goes into Idaho a little bit, goes into Montana a little bit, but the bulk of the park is up here in Wyoming. You also have Grand Teton just right below. You've got some really cool things to do in this area. And so Yellowstone is just in a great spot for a family vacation. Yellowstone is famous for its geysers and hot pools. It's famous because it was the very first national park to be established in 1872. That was quite a while before they even had a National Park Service. So it's really cool. It's historical. You get to see all this water shooting into the air and a whole bunch of cool colors. So it's just one of those very iconic places. A few things you'll want to note. Yellowstone is 2.2 million acres. So that is a massive national park. It's the second largest in the contiguous US. You're looking at covering a ton of ground during your vacation. And so again, that goes along with what I was saying of how important it is to have a good plan, to know when to be where, and to stay in the right places so that you're not just spending all your time in your car. The crowd levels in Yellowstone are high with around 5 million visitors per year. But again, what's nice about Yellowstone is because you have 2.2 million acres of land spread between those 5 million people, there are definitely ways to cut down on the crowds and to have a really great experience out in nature. In fact, in my experience, if you're willing to just hike a little bit further away from the road, it is really easy to find some solitude in this park. Most people come, park, stick to the boardwalks, walk around, basically just from what you can see right from the road in most cases. And so there are a lot of great ways to get out and explore this park further. Taking a look at this map of the park, you'll see this is Yellowstone here. I'll make it a little bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. But basically, you have two loops. You've got your upper loop here and your lower loop here. And so as we're talking through things to do in the park, I will refer to things as upper loop, lower loop. That's what I'm talking about. So the lower loop has Old Faithful, it has Yellowstone Lake over here. So a lot of your time will be focused kind of down in this area. Your upper loop has Mammoth Hot Springs, you've got Lamar Valley out here. And so this upper loop area doesn't have as much geyser activity. It is more about the wildlife and the mountain views, lots of trees, lots of water. So this area is, I would say, is the more scenic area of Yellowstone if you're looking for like those traditional views. This area down here is where you get all the crazy stuff. You've got all the geysers and the hot pots and the fumaroles and all the stuff that's just coming out of the earth. So you really can divide your trip into 2 vacations because along the lower loop, that's where you're like seeing all the quintessential like Yellowstone stuff. And then the upper loop is all about the wildlife. So I would definitely try to make time to do both because you will have extremely different experiences based on where you are in the park. Okay, let's talk about how to get to Yellowstone. This is a question that I get a lot. The best way to get to Yellowstone, where should I fly in, what airport, what are the roads like, things like that. So let's talk you through that for a minute. I am here on the Dirt in My Shoes website. I have a full article about this, but here's a map that I have made to show you. So here's Yellowstone here. You've got the West Yellowstone Airport, which is the closest airport to Yellowstone National Park. This airport is really small. It really only has flights coming in from like Salt Lake City. And so if you want to fly directly into this airport, then you will have a layover, but it will get you really close to the park. And that's pretty true of most of these little regional airports along the way. A lot of people like to fly into the Jackson Hole Airport. It is actually right in Grand Teton. And so flying down into this airport is phenomenal. You get amazing Teton views. And then that gives you the chance to explore the Teton area before driving up to Yellowstone. The major complaint about the Jackson Hole Airport is that it does tend to be quite expensive. It's a very nice, ritzy area to fly into. If you're looking for a larger international airport, if you don't want to fly into one of those smaller regional ones and pay a premium price, then you can fly into either the Bozeman Airport here, which gets you quite close, within a couple hours of the north entrance of Yellowstone, or Salt Lake City. A lot of people fly into Salt Lake City. It takes 4.5 hours to drive up to West Yellowstone from there, and then you can start exploring the park at that point. So either one of these works. Bozeman does get you closer to Yellowstone, but the flight options are a little bit more limited than the ones you'll find going into Salt Lake. Personally, if you can find something going into Bozeman, that is probably the airport I would favor over Salt Lake City, just because, again, it does get you closer to that north entrance, but also it's a really nice halfway point, almost between like Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and then Glacier National Park. So if you're wanting to do all 3 of those in one trip, then Bozeman is the easy choice for that. A lot of people who fly into Salt Lake City, on the other hand, like to go to Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and then they might actually go the opposite direction, go down to like some of the Utah parks like Arches or Zion, and then go back up and fly out of Salt Lake. So depending on how much time you have, if you want to take a little road trip, if you're wanting to see some other parks, that would determine which airport would fit better for you. But in general, I like to favor Bozeman. As far as driving to Yellowstone, you really have some great options, and it doesn't necessarily matter. Everything is really scenic. And so if you're coming down from Bozeman this direction, you'll go past Big Sky, which is a gorgeous ski resort area. If you're coming up from Salt Lake City, you'll go on Highway 20 and you'll pass Island Park. There's moose everywhere in this area, so that's really cool. Highway 89 takes you straight down to Gardner. This one's really beautiful as it goes through like the town of Prey, and you've got like really beautiful Beartooth Mountain views over here. This one, Highway 212, is my favorite way to enter Yellowstone. And so if you are coming from the east and you're driving into Yellowstone, 150% go in via Highway 212 if you can. This is known as the Beartooth Highway. It stretches from Red Lodge down over into here by Cook City. Cook City is the northeast entrance to Yellowstone. So once you go through here, then you are in Yellowstone. This is the Lamar Valley where all the wildlife is. But the Beartooth Highway, so it goes up to like 10,000 feet above sea level. It is just one of those great American roads that has spectacular mountain views. You will not be sorry for driving through this road. All right, and then you've got Highway 14. This one comes in from Cody. I don't love staying in Cody. I don't love being out in this area because it's just a really, really long drive into Yellowstone. It takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours to get from Cody over to Yellowstone. A lot of people don't realize that as they're, planning their trip. Cody is the gateway to Yellowstone. They say that, but it's a little far away to really make sense as a base camp for your Yellowstone vacation. So I never encourage people to stay in Cody for Yellowstone, but if you really want to go to Cody, I would add that in before or after your time in Yellowstone. And then you've got Highway 191 from Grand Teton. This, there's a little stretch of 8 miles that's not technically in either national park, but then you are boom right there in Grand Teton. I drive this highway a lot because I love going between the two parks while I'm in the area. Let's talk about the best time to visit Yellowstone, because this can be a little bit tricky. But in general, if you're wanting to get to everything, if you're wanting to visit Yellowstone when the roads are open and you're able to see the entirety of the park, I would aim for no earlier than mid-May. If you go earlier than mid-May, a good portion of the roads are still closed and getting cleared of snow. So I typically never try to go before mid-May. I'll a lot of times even wait a little bit longer, into May 20th or so, even into Memorial Day weekend, just to be safe, to make sure that those roads have opened up. And then for June, July, August, September, you're pretty good. You can get around the park really well. October is when it gets a little bit iffy. They do try to keep the roads open until about November 1st, sometime in the beginning of November. But October can be a little iffy because snow does come through this region in October, and it's hard to know kind of what you're going to get. Temporary road closures can be common at that time. And so if you've never been to Yellowstone before, I do encourage you to try to plan your trip a little bit more during the main season, just so that you don't miss out on things that you might really want to see. Okay, so looking at the map here, the roads that take the longest to open after the winter are typically this road here that goes from Grant Village to Old Faithful. The road that goes from the Tetons up into Yellowstone oftentimes stays closed for a while. This road between Tower and Canyon, this is where the highest point in the park is that you can drive to at Dunraven Pass, and so that one stays nice and snowy. So you will want to keep that in mind when you're planning your trip. There is one road that stays open year-round, and that is the road here that goes from Mammoth Hot Springs out to the northeast entrance. So the road does close out in here, but you can get to the Lamar Valley. You can get to this area around here during the winter. Yellowstone is actually awesome during the winter, and so if you want to drive that road from Mammoth through the Lamar Valley, oftentimes that's the best time to see wolves in the park. You can see them against the snow, they're out, they're active, so that's a really cool experience. Otherwise, you can take a snow coach either from Mammoth or West Yellowstone. You can take a snow coach into the park. There's also snowmobiling, cross-country skiing. There's a lot of really cool things you can do in the winter. But you won't be able to get around the whole park. And so if you've never been before, I would start with a summer visit so that you can see everything, and then go back for the winter because it is truly magical. The months that I would definitely avoid in Yellowstone, especially if you've never been there before, is November and April. I never go to Yellowstone during these months because the problem is the roads have closed for the winter in November. And so you can't drive everywhere, but there's not enough snow. The snow coaches don't start running until mid-December. There's just not enough snow to do any winter stuff. And so you're really in this weird transition phase where a lot of things are closed, but the things that you might want to do are not available yet. So, and that's the same for April. The park roads are still mostly closed, kind of starting to open up. And so they're plowing snow, so you can't get in there and do the snow activities, but not everything is quite open for the summer. And so you're stuck kind of in this weird limbo. So if you can avoid those 2 months, that would be ideal. Now, a word about park updates. So Even if I redid this video every time something changes, I would still not be able to provide you with the most up-to-date information for Yellowstone. The park conditions are constantly changing. Mother Nature comes in with floods and wildfires and things like that. And so even though this information is in general very accurate, you will want to make sure that you are checking the Yellowstone website. You can go over here, click on alerts, and it will take you to a whole page that has information for you. So this will be like the latest information. This will show you the road status, weather. If you click on this park roads, it shows you a whole map to say which roads are open and which roads are not. And so, you can see it's winter now. So you can see this road is fully open. These roads are open for the over snow travel and the snow coaches, but otherwise, you can't drive except this road. So you will want to pay close attention to what's happening in the park. What I like to do is I like to go in, that 8 months, a year in advance when I'm first starting to plan my trip. And just kind of check and see generally what's happening. And then as it gets closer and closer to my trip, I keep checking back to make sure that I haven't missed anything important, because you never know if they're going to close things due to construction, if they're going to have to close things due to Mother Nature, if they're going to start making you have a reservation for certain areas. Things like that are really important that you won't want to miss if you're planning your trip. It can be really hard to keep up on this, and so if you don't want to have to do it, or if you're worried about missing things, check out my Yellowstone Itinerary. I keep track of all of that for you. I update my itineraries in real time so that you have the most helpful and up-to-date information that you need. So that is definitely an option if you want advice and tips from someone who has been to Yellowstone so many times. I can walk you through what's happening in the park and make sure you have alternatives, make sure you know what you need to have a successful vacation. Okay, let's talk about how many days you're going to want in Yellowstone. This park is huge, so you really could spend an infinity number of days in Yellowstone. But for the first-time visitor, if you're trying to get to the main can't miss spots, activities that you definitely don't want to skip over, if you want to make sure that you're able to cover the whole park really well, then you'll want to give yourself 4 days. If you can't do 4 days, 3 is okay. But then it starts getting a little tight, as you go less than 3. That's when you're going to start feeling like Yellowstone is really busy, that you just have to navigate through those busy areas when the crowds are all there. And so I would not go less than 3 if you can help it. 4 is ideal. 3 we can work with. 1 day, you really only have time to do one of the loops. So if you have 1 day in the park, you would probably need to choose between seeing Old Faithful and Canyon Village or going up here to Mammoth and Lamar Valley. If you have 2 days in the park, you could definitely do 1 day on the upper loop and 1 day on the lower loop. That would work. But again, that's going to put you at some of these really busy spots during the busiest times of day. There's just not a good way to avoid that. It's just really hard to avoid crowds if you're only giving yourself a day or 2. Let's talk about where to stay for your Yellowstone vacation. I have some thoughts about this, so I want to show you. I do have an article all about this on Dirt in My Shoes, but here's Yellowstone. Yellowstone has 5 entrances. And so which entrance you choose to stay near will make a huge difference in how much driving and how much time you'll be in your car to see the main sights of Yellowstone. If you are staying inside of Yellowstone, if you want to book one of the lodges in Yellowstone, in general, I recommend trying to stay kind of along this main road here. But there aren't a lot of lodges in this area. You've got one in Canyon, really nice big one. But, otherwise you don't really have anywhere else to stay if you want to be in a lodge. And so if you're going to stay in a park lodge, that's when I would kind of break up your lodging a couple nights here and a couple nights there. Old Faithful, I mean, if you can stay in the Old Faithful Inn, that would be phenomenal. You can go to Lake Village. There's a gorgeous lodge there right on the lake. Grant Village has a lodge. So if you're going to stay in one of these three, then you'll also want to probably book a couple nights up here in Mammoth just to break up the driving a little bit. Like I said, if you can give yourself proximity to the upper loop and then proximity to the lower loop, that will really help with the drive times in Yellowstone. If you don't want to stay in the park, or if you don't make your reservations far enough in advance and you're not able to get what you want in the park, that's when we start looking at those entrances. And so you've got the west entrance over here, and the gateway town here is West Yellowstone. That is the most ideal entrance to stay at if you want a good central location for visiting Yellowstone. Staying in West Yellowstone, I mean, you're only like 30 seconds outside of the west entrance gate, and then you're along this main park road that goes through the middle. So you can easily get down to Old Faithful. You can get up to Mammoth without too much driving. So that would be where I would stay first if you're going to stay outside of the park. If you don't mind switching hotels a couple times during your stay, then Gardner is really great for seeing Mammoth and the Lamar Valley. Cook City is really small. Your options are very limited in this area, but there are a few. And then I would move down to somewhere else. But the problem that you get to when you move down, so this south entrance, this is Grand Teton. And so you really don't have there's not a town there to stay in unless you go like all the way down further into Grand Teton. And then this east entrance, there are hardly any options along this road really until you get out to Cody. You'll find, one or two in here, but really your options aren't there until you get to Cody. But staying in Cody puts you really far out of Yellowstone. So I don't recommend that. I don't like staying in one place to see both Yellowstone and Grand Teton, so I typically don't recommend staying down near the south entrance for Yellowstone. It's just so much driving. You enter Yellowstone right here, but you don't really get to anything of note for a long time. And that's the same problem with Cody. You enter Yellowstone right here, but you still have a long drive to even get to the lake. So these entrances I typically just never stay at unless I'm coming from or going to somewhere else. So if you do decide to stay like up in Gardner, I still would do maybe a couple nights here, and then I would go down to West Yellowstone and do a couple nights there for this lower part of the park. I get the question a lot about staying in one place for Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and I did mention this, but I typically never recommend doing that. The reason being that people just grossly underestimate the amount of driving you have to do in Yellowstone. And so if you're staying down by the south entrance or you're staying down by Grand Teton, you will spend so much time in your car just trying to get up into Yellowstone. So if you are trying to see both parks, I highly, highly recommend splitting your lodging. Think of each park individually and book your lodging accordingly for what makes sense for that park. Don't try to stay in one place to see both if you can help it. Camping in Yellowstone is a different story. There are a lot of campgrounds in Yellowstone, and so if you're wanting to stay in the park, you've got some great central options. And I have a full video about camping in Yellowstone that's just like really in depth on this, but basically if you can get something at Madison, Norris, Canyon, that will really keep you in a good central location. You won't have to move around each night. But similar to the lodges, if you're gonna come up here in this area, you've got like Mammoth, Indian Creek, Tower, Slough Creek, Pebble Creek, all these up here. You are gonna wanna counteract that with something down here. And there are some great options down here too. You can camp at Grant, you can camp at Bridge Bay, Fishing Bridge, Lewis Lake, all of these are down here. So you do have more flexibility in Yellowstone if you're wanting to stay in the park, if you're camping. But again, if you have any questions about camping, be sure to check out my other video. It is very in-depth on this subject. I have a lot to say about camping, so definitely check that out. Now, for the exciting part, let's talk about some of the coolest things that you can do in Yellowstone National Park. So I'm going to take you around by looking at the map so we can kind of go around each loop, but talking you through some of my favorite things to see while you're in the park. Okay, so we're going to approach this as if you're staying in West Yellowstone here and you're coming into the park to visit. So when you come in, you'll follow the river here, and then as you head south from Madison, that's where you'll really hit those geyser areas. Most people know about Old Faithful, but did you know that there are tons of other geysers that you can see in this park? Okay, so if you come down here, you've got the lower geyser basin, you've got midway geyser basin, you've got the upper geyser basin. All of these geyser basins just have some really cool stuff. So your lower is the fountain paint pots, which are really fun to watch. Your midway is Grand Prismatic, which is the largest hot pool in Yellowstone. It's that gorgeous one that just flames out in colors. It's so, so beautiful. And then you've got Old Faithful down here. Old Faithful and the upper geyser basin, there are actually a ton of different geysers that you can see here. So we love Old Faithful, but often we will wander around this area and try to catch Castle Geyser, Grand Geyser. You can see Daisy Geyser, you can see Beehive Geyser, you can see all sorts of stuff. And then they have other things that just have, little names that you just really don't remember. But you can walk along these boardwalks up and beyond Old Faithful to see some amazing things. So that is one of my favorite things to do in the Old Faithful area. We will stick around to see Old Faithful, but in general, most people just stop there, and there is so much more to see near Old Faithful. So take a few hours and wander the area. You will not be sorry. Beyond Old Faithful, this is when you get to the West Thumb. This is another geyser basin area, so you do have some activity here. It's not as energetic as the Old Faithful area, but these ones are right on the lake. They're super pretty. It's really cool to see some geysers in Yellowstone Lake. So I really like that one. And then you come around here and you're following the lake. It is gorgeous. You get to Fishing Bridge. Here's Mud Volcano, which is one of my favorite spots in Yellowstone. It is so stinky. It smells really, really sulfury, and it's just exploding. There's just stuff going on everywhere. And so you've got the Dragon's Mouth, which looks like a dragon is breathing in and out. You've got Mud Volcano, which is all this mud that's spewing, and there's a lot of really cool things you can see here. So this is one of my favorite spots, especially with kids, because there is just a lot going on here. It keeps their attention really well. And then you get up to Canyon, and Canyon is where you find the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. This is where those just giant waterfalls are. You've got the lower falls that is so beautiful that you can catch from Artist Point. You can hike a few trails in this area to get really cool views of lower falls, like the Uncle Tom's Trail or the Red Rock Trail. There's some really great options in this area. Okay, and then completing our circle over here, you come over to Norris. Norris, I feel, is one of the most underrated parts of Yellowstone. A lot of people, it's just not one of those names that you're like, oh, when we go to Yellowstone, we have to see Norris. But the Norris Geyser Basin is the hottest part of Yellowstone. And so you get different colors. It's like a pastel landscape. It's so beautiful, but there's a lot of hot steam. Again, you've got a lot of movement and strange things coming out of the rocks, and it's just a really cool stop. Norris is also where Steamboat Geyser is, which is the largest geyser in the world. And unfortunately, this one is not on a timer. You can't time it perfectly to come see it. It just erupts whenever it feels like. But if you're in the area, you do have a chance of seeing Steamboat Geyser. Okay, and then from Norris, that completes our lower loop. So then we head up to Mammoth Hot Springs. Mammoth Hot Springs is the most historic part of the park. So this is where you will see the historic Roosevelt Arch that greets people coming into Yellowstone. This is where Fort Yellowstone is. They were army barracks, basically, when the army was sent out to Yellowstone to stop poaching. And a lot of those buildings are in use for various things for the Park Service, but you can tour around that area. And then you've got Mammoth Hot Springs itself, which is basically the hot water and minerals have taken over the hill, and it's coming down in like travertine terraces. Super beautiful. A really, really cool area of Yellowstone. From Mammoth, you head over here and you'll get to Tower Fall. Tower Fall is just a massive waterfall. Yellowstone, a lot of people don't think waterfalls in Yellowstone, but it has some fantastic ones. You'll pass them as you're driving. There's some that you can hike to, but the waterfalls in Yellowstone are pretty unreal. And Tower Fall is just one of those where you've got to stop and look at it for a minute because there's so much power and it's perfectly framed. It's absolutely gorgeous. Beyond Tower, if you come out this way, this is the Lamar Valley. This whole area out here, this is where most of the just big game animals that you're trying to see are living. So you'll see tons of buffalo, pronghorn, bighorn sheep, bears, grizzly bears, and wolves. And so if you're hoping to see wildlife in Yellowstone, Lamar Valley is where it's at. If you can't get to the Lamar Valley, the Hayden Valley down here is a good substitute, but I have never had as much luck seeing anything down here as I have up here. So if the wildlife is important to you, make sure you get to the Lamar Valley. And of course, that's just a brief description of a few things you can do in Yellowstone. Those are the main sites that you're not going to want to miss. But you could dig into any one of these areas for a good amount of time and still not see everything. So again, it can be kind of hard and overwhelming to know, what's worth my time? What should I stop at? Because as you're driving, you'll notice there's things to see all over, and some of them are cool, but not as cool as something else similar. And so it can be hard to know where your time is best spent. I have a full article on Dirt in My Shoes about the best things to do in Yellowstone, and I have all of these topics. So if you're wanting to go on a longer hike, you can, that is one of my favorite hikes. I love that one. You can take one of these suggestions. If you don't want to hike, I have other suggestions of things that you can do. So there is a big long list on Dirt in My Shoes that can help you decide what activities you don't want to miss. If you want my specific recommendations, then my Yellowstone itinerary will walk you through all of that, including the timing, when to be where, what's realistic as far as how many things you can get to in a day, and stuff like that. For a minute, I just want to talk you through kind of what a typical day in Yellowstone would look like. And so as you're going into Yellowstone, you'll go through an entrance station, and these entrance lines do get pretty long. So when people talk about all the crowds in Yellowstone, they're not overreacting. The crowds are for real. It is common to have to wait in that entrance line if you get there at the wrong time. So I typically like to get in there pretty early so that I can avoid some of those entrance lines. That also helps, if you can start your day early enough, that helps with the crowding. It helps you get parking at the spots that are nearly impossible to get parking later in the day. So there are some areas of Yellowstone where it's just like, I won't even touch those spots at certain times because I know it's just gonna be a madhouse. And so the timing really matters in this park. Another time of day that's really nice in Yellowstone is right around dinner time. Things really slow down at that time as well. And so a lot of times, we'll kind of take a break in the middle of the day and then we'll head back out later in the day to get to some of those areas that we didn't hit because they were too busy. I also love going out in the evenings. It is gorgeous. The golden hour in Yellowstone, just the water sparkles, the colors are cool. And so that's a really nice time to be out there as well. As you're traveling around Yellowstone, you really don't go very far without hitting some type of amenities. And so you don't have to pack food with you. You don't have to worry about not being able to find a bathroom. Things that often are a little bit of a struggle in other national parks just typically don't really matter here. Again, you will hit amenities at most of these main labeled areas. So Old Faithful, for example, like there's a few different restaurants. There's like a massive convenience store that's like grocery store size. You've got a gas station. There's even like a mechanic. If something happens to your car, you can get it fixed at Old Faithful. So Old Faithful has a ton. Grant Village has like a gas station and stuff like that. It has a convenience store and restaurants. Canyon Village does. Bridge Bay has some stuff. So as you're driving around, you really aren't like too far removed from things that you might need. So again, you don't really have to pack a picnic if you don't want to. You will find restaurants as you work your way around these loops. There's bathrooms along the way. There's gas stations along the way. So everything you could need is there. What I will say, when you are traveling this upper loop though, there are far less amenities than there are down here in the lower loop area. So up here, you will have a harder time finding a bathroom, especially like as you're out in Lamar Valley. There's some like vault toilets and stuff kind of along the way, but there's not a lot out here. Tower has like an ice cream shop and a little gift shop. But otherwise, you are a little bit further removed along this upper loop than you are along the lower loop. So my typical day in Yellowstone looks like getting up nice and early so I can get into the park, hopefully see some wildlife as I'm driving to my destination, and spending all day just enjoying the park. You can take a break at some of the lodges, stop in for a nice meal, and just work your way around the park for the day. Typically I am out really early until pretty late, and so I can fill my days with lots of cool stuff. If you are wanting actual detailed hour-by-hour schedules of how I spend my days in Yellowstone and how I'm able to time things without getting stuck in the crowds and the traffic, I've helped thousands of people with this, and I would love to help you too. So the Dirt in My Shoes itinerary walks you through my schedule completely. You can choose between a 1, 2, 3, or 4-day itinerary. If you want that hour-by-hour schedule, I can just show you real quick. You will get a full itinerary with maps, what I would do every hour, how I would break it down, important things that you need to know. That is all available for you. If at any point this feels just a little overwhelming, I am so happy to help you with your Yellowstone vacation. You'll also get all those updates I talked about, so if anything happens in the park or anything closes down, then I will instruct you through exactly what to do and other alternative activity options you can add in. I will keep you on top of all the things going on in Yellowstone in addition to that daily schedule. Okay, just a few more things about Yellowstone, and hopefully this has been really helpful so far. But another thing you'll want to note is that Yellowstone, even if you're planning a trip in the summer, it does get quite cold in the mornings and evenings. And so you will want to wear layers. You will want to have a jacket with you. It's not typical summer weather a lot of the time. So it can get really hot during the day, but those mornings and evenings will often be quite chilly, especially if you're camping. I think it's always a surprise when I'm camping. I forget how cold it gets sometimes overnight. So just keep that in mind. You will want layers. The second thing is animal safety. Let's talk about bears for just a minute. Bears are all over Yellowstone, and so you will want to be really careful with your food storage. You'll want to make sure that anything that has a scent is put away. I do get a lot of questions about storing food, like can you keep it in a car? And the answer is yes. You can keep it in your car. Make sure it's in a locked car because bears are quite smart. They will find a way in. Make sure your windows are up, your car is locked if you're leaving food in there. The other thing is that I do always hike with bear spray when I'm in Yellowstone. You can rent bear spray. There's a kiosk at Canyon that you can rent it from. You can rent it in West Yellowstone. I'm sure you can find it in Gardner too. But I do hike with it. I feel better having it, but you'll want to know how to use it. And I have full articles about bear safety on Dirt in My Shoes that I'll link in the description. But you will want to have those things with you and keep those things in mind as you are traveling through bear country. As for other wildlife, you will see so many animals here. I'm so excited for you. But you do want to keep a good distance away from these animals. They are completely wild and unpredictable. And when you get too close, they can feel really threatened and do things that are unsafe for you and for them. So the most common thing really is people getting too close to the buffalo. And you'll see it as you're driving through, people get out of their cars and just get like way too close to get a picture. Use your zoom, stay in your car. Those buffalo do ram into people and gore people if you get too close. And so it's just one of those things. These animals live here, we're just visitors, and it's really important to give them their space so that they don't feel threatened. One of my favorite things to do in Yellowstone is just drive around and look for animals. So I hope you're excited to see a lot of really cool things, but bring your zoom, bring your spotting scope or binoculars if you have them, because that will help a lot in getting a good view of the animals without putting them in danger. For more tips on Yellowstone or more information about my favorite things to do in the park, I do have videos about both of those things. I have video about camping, I have videos about geysers. I've got all sorts of stuff that you can watch for more information on Yellowstone. And I also have that Yellowstone itinerary that will just give you a step-by-step plan for seeing the park in an amazing way. I can't wait for you to get to Yellowstone National Park. Happy trails!